I want to ask a question about delegation and obviously to keep growing and to expand and to continue to grow like you're doing, you've got to be able to think about things in different ways. And a lot of executives, they just have a lot more coming onto their plate and a lot more expectations. And sometimes it's hard to let go of what we used to do, or they maybe think that they could do it better than anybody else. And sometimes we forget that, somebody had to teach us. So do you mind kind of talking about delegation and how do you, I guess, dip your toe into the water with that kind of stuff? And then at what level are you just kind of like, hey, I'm going to let it go. Somebody else can figure this out. I'd love to hear your thoughts on delegation.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite things to talk about, and I don't get the opportunity much. So thank you. I appreciate it. So first off, I kind of look at things through three different elements when it comes, delegation being one of I always tell myself either automate, delegate, eliminate. Those are three things I put every filter through. So automate, delegate, eliminate. Some things that you're like, oh, I need to delegate this, you could just automate it. Like an example is if you're like, well, I have to post on social media, I need to do that. There are tools out there that literally you can schedule it out and be done with it. You can automate that process. So you don't need to say, oh, it's 12 o'clock on Tuesday, I have to get out there and post something. No, you can just throw it through the scheduling tool. So before I even think about delegating, I think, is there a way to automate this process? Does this tool exist? And if it does, that's always, in my mind, a better solution than trying to hire somebody and delegate it, right? If it can just be automated, then let it be. But the core here is what you're asking about, which is delegation. And I think this is so difficult for those of us in business that are high level, because for whatever reason, it makes sense actually. The smarter you are, the better you are at what you do, the more comes to you because people know this person will get it done. And because of that, I see it in business all the time. And I was in corporate for 15 years. My desk was just full of stuff all the time because like Alex will get it done. No one even needs to check in on him. He's great. He's going to make it happen. And like you're saying, like eventually some of those things come on your plate where you're like, ooh, this is the best way I can help the company. This is also the best way I can move forward. But this is something I've been doing for 5 years and I just have to do it. And the problem is so many of us, we burn ourselves out on that. We're just like, oh man, new opportunities, new ways to help our clients, but the stuff I've been doing forever. And at some point, the way I've had to come to terms with this, because I'm a high achiever. So everything in me wants to say, I can keep on doing it. I can keep on doing it. I don't need the recognition. I just like internally feel the need to do it. Right. But there's this thing that I came up with that I've actually heard talked about, just called necessary endings. And at some point, you just have to be willing to come to terms with the fact that you can't do it all the time. And you have to sit back and say, what's the best for my professional advancement? What's the best for my mental health and my physical health? And also, what's the best for the company? Ultimately, the client, right? More so than just the company, the client that you're there to serve. And you can look at all that and say, you know what? I've been doing this for 5 years. I'm probably the best one in the building at this, but it's a necessary ending. I can't continue to do this and protect my mental health and protect the client. And that's when you say it's time to delegate. And to me, delegation is one of those things where I don't believe you'll ever, if you're a high achiever, I don't believe you'll ever feel like anyone's going to do as good as you are. But I promise you, someone will. Even if it starts off where they're only able to do 80% of what you can, at some point, someone will figure out how to take that to a different level. But you can only get to that if you let somebody do it at 80% of your capacity and level. And so it's just, again, that necessary ending where you say, hey, for me and for the company, it's in the best interest. Here you go. And to really, truly let it go. And that is so much easier said than done. Like I shared this really fast, but like, I'd actually love to hear your thoughts on how you've been able to do that as well. Because for me, this took years of learning, but ultimately what it boils down to is what I just shared. But what are your thoughts on this? If you don't mind me turning it on you, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I believe in the delegation, and even probably before I was ready for it, just bringing somebody in as a college intern to start kind of picking some stuff up. Just when I'm thinking about my immediate future or my immediate past, it's just grabbing that college intern and experimenting and sitting down and teaching and being able to be okay. Well, as a recovering perfectionist, it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty darn close. And I'm going to be able to do something else instead. That's going to be much more productive. And it's making me stretch and grow. And it's uncomfortable. I don't like it. And but I like the results of it. And I think what I'm seeing right now with our coaching clients is having to ask the question, are you more valuable by identifying those tasks that you can delegate out and then being able to grow your role and be able to grow your vision and your strategy? Are you more valuable that way to the company, or are you more valuable, holding on to everything? And, if you don't want to grow anymore, then that's okay. We all need different people in different positions. But you got to figure out, are you comfortable with staying who you are, or do you think you can provide more value? And are you ready to provide more value by letting go, to be able to really probably think deeper than they have before, and making time for the thinking and the planning of what I call clarity breaks, and taking a pause from all the chaos that's coming at everybody all day long.
Yeah, I love what you just shared there. If I could just share the last piece of what I talked about: automate, delegate, eliminate. And real quick, elimination of things is just one of those things that we all do things because we've been doing it sometimes, right? Or somebody, when they left a job, they gave it to you, and at the end of the day, no one has challenged the status quo, and that's why that thing's still being done. I'll just speak to my own business. At one point, somebody recommended that we use Pinterest, and this was years ago, before I had Pod Pros, and we just kind of rolled it over, changed the name, kept on using it. And recently, I was talking to one of my content people who I pass off to. He's like, the most stressful thing we have is Pinterest doesn't play well with the formats of things. We got to do it all custom. And he's like, yeah, it's just a lot of extra work. Like, but we're making it happen. And I was just like, hey, do we get any traction over there? He's like, no, it's basically crickets. And I was like, then why don't we just stop? Why don't we just eliminate that process? And he's like, are you sure? Like, it's a lot of stuff over there that we've done. I'm like, but let's just see what happens. Does our business shrink? Do we get less leads? What happens? And so we cut it off. We just don't use it anymore. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to do that. Pinterest might be amazing for someone else's business, but for us, it just wasn't seeing any traction. Stopping it alleviated a lot of stress. And so again, instead of even delegating, it might just be time to say goodbye to something. Again, go back to the idea of a necessary ending. Sometimes that doesn't even mean delegating. It just means letting it go completely and seeing what effect it has. And in businesses, I think we're really scared of that because, again, it's been done like this for 15 years. It's been done like this for 10 years. But what would happen if you stopped? At the end of the day, what you can say is, does this make our lives easier? And does it make us more accurately able to service and help our client? And if the answer is yes, then maybe it doesn't need to be there. And again, automate, delegate, eliminate. These three things have been just a core in my life. And something that you said that I have to mention, you have to let go of being a perfectionist in order to really do this well. And that, again, I'm saying that, and it's really easy for me to say. It took me years to learn that, but I'm telling you, it's one of the best things I've ever done for myself. So I consider myself a fully recovered perfectionist at this point.
I'm still trying to recover. I have my moments. So, and this reminds me of a time when I was in corporate. I was younger. I was 24, went into this bank operations center, and they wanted me to learn all the products that we could sell and document everything and create product descriptions and set up forms and everything that goes with it. And so part of that was I sat with every department head for this operations bank. And I said, what can we do? And, how do you want me to tell you we have a new customer? What do you need to know? And they said, well, here are the old forms. I said, well, do they work for you, or what's the purpose of this? And they said, it's just what we've always used. I said, well, are you up for change? And they said, yeah, if it's going to make my life better. So we redesigned everything, and I sat next to the individual and I said, okay, tell me what information you need first. And we reformatted what they needed. We removed what didn't need to be needed and really condensed a lot of the paperwork, and it made it easier in operations. It made it a heck of a lot easier on the customer because they didn't have to fill out a bunch of stuff that nobody needed anymore. And so just kind of challenging that normal expectation and working with team members who are willing to grow and evolve has really been helpful. And that same type process of understanding why we're doing what we're doing is just something that I feel like is vital in business, where we're just continuing to question it, understand it, and be able to respond. So, because like you said, there could be a chance to eliminate some of this extra work that nobody needs anymore.
Yeah, the one key here, I think, for a takeaway for people that are watching or listening to this is to take a step back, like reserve time to take a step back. Because the problem is when you're really in the day-to-day operation, all those things look like they're essential and a necessity, and it causes extra stress because it all has to be done because it's all important. But if you can somehow block out even just an hour a week, pick your slow day in the office and say, for 1 hour, I'm going to sit back and just look really high level. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? And of course, within your position, don't take someone else's role in the company and be like, this person needs to stop, right? No, look at yourself and everything you do and just and reflect on it, because what you just shared, Catherine, is how that happened, is the fact that you were able to look at it from afar